you have to build that career security for yourself, and you have to build your own brand. But when you give someone the space to do the job they're hired for, and you trust them to do that job, let them do it. There's a lot of boys club stuff that still happens today. I don't call them soft skills. I call them power skills.
Welcome to Loud and Lifted. I'm your host, Betsy Hamm. Today, I'm sitting down with Lyndsay Dowd, founder of Heartbeat for Hire and author of Top Down Culture and one of the top podcast hosts in the industry. Lyndsay brings a refreshing and heart-centered approach to leadership, showing us that culture isn't a buzzword, it's the heartbeat of every successful organization. Together, we'll unpack the advice no one tells you, but everyone needs to hear in order to succeed in the workplace. From the way you show up to how you build trust. We'll also dive into practical shifts, like how to get unstuck when you're in a funk and how to celebrate your team in a way that actually matters. Today's episode is no fluff guidance you can put into play today. Welcome to Loud and Lifted. Lyndsay, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it is my honor. I am so happy you're doing this show. This is so exciting.
I'm
Thanks for
excited
having
that I
me.
have another reason to have a conversation with
I
you. The
know.
first one was so good. So
So good.
let's give the listeners a little bit of background of just tell us, your journey and what you're up
Sure.
to now.
Sure. Yeah. I spent a solid 25 years in corporate America and did all the things that you were expected to do, got the awards, got the accolades, climbed the ranks. And 23 of those years were at IBM. And I came from a long, big blue legacy of my family put in 105 years there. So we understood that. We understood that culture. We understood security and all the things that come with corporate America. And at the end of 23 years, I was ready for a change. I was the last one standing from my family. And another company sought me out and said, come lead a sales team for us. And I said, okay. So packed up my big blue legacy and off I went. And any reasonable executive knows it takes a little bit for a new executive to find the bathroom. And 6 months is a reasonable opportunity to do that. And that's not what they had in mind. And so at 6 months, they fired me.
Oh my gosh.
And I was devastated, totally gutted. Not the person that gets fired. I'm the person that follows the rules, creates the space, creates the culture. So it was really hard for me to get my head around that. And for a month, I couldn't talk about it. And at the end of that month, I asked myself 3 questions. What am I really good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And I knew how to build modern leaders, and I knew how to create irresistible culture that drives results. And so I started my company, Heartbeat for Hire, which gave everyone in my family a heart attack because they don't know entrepreneurs. They think that's just a recipe for failure. And I wrote my first book. I wrote my second book. I started a podcast. I got some awards, and I coach C-suites and individual leaders on all of those things. I teach executive LinkedIn workshops. I keynote. And that's kind of what I'm up to.
That's amazing. I love it. And I love the Heartbeat for Hire. Like that just has heart, which is
that was the
sometimes
point.
hard to find in leadership, right?
And you know what? It was a direct response to the leader who had terribly low EQ, who fired me. She even said to me, she said, "You have really strong EQ. I don't." And I said, "Oh, I agree." She did not. Hers was terrible. And everyone knew it. And what was really interesting was the recruiter that brought me in said to me after the fact, when she found out that I wasn't there anymore, she said, if you came in as her peer, she would have learned a lot from you, but you were an absolute threat to the way that she leads. And she wanted me to be a micromanager. That's what she knew. That's what she understood. And that is something I would never be.
And it's hard because sometimes you can have leaders who realize they have to have balance, right? Like you don't want to hire somebody exactly like you. You want somebody
No.
who can bring different strengths. So it's
Yeah.
unfortunate she didn't realize that you had different strengths.
Hey, it was a win for me because it was the shove out of the nest that I needed.
True.
And it put me on the path to figure out this whole chapter, which, I'm 53 years old. So 3 years ago when I started all this, I didn't.
Which is crazy. Like at 50, starting a whole new, not just job, your own business.
The whole thing. Wrote a couple, who I never thought I'd be an author. I never thought I'd host a podcast. This is It's amazing.
So
So, it's never too
funny
late.
how things work out, right? Like sometimes
Yeah.
like something happens that you think is so bad and so negative, and
Yeah.
then it turns around and becomes something that's the most amazing thing that's ever happened to you.
Yeah. Those are the best stories.
I love that.
Yeah.
So through your career and obviously even coaching others,
Yeah.
you've probably seen and learned a lot. And
Yes.
we talk about the same things over and over time, what that we need to focus on. But what have you seen from your either personal perspective or just working with other leaders that nobody tells you to be prepared for? Besides
Yeah.
just getting fired after 6 months, like
Yeah.
that's
The big thing tell people all the time is there's no such thing as job security. There's only career security. And, I was lucky. I was never laid off from IBM. I did have to lay people off, but that's not the world we live in anymore. People don't stay at companies for 20 years. And if they do, it's a
Mhm.
rarity. So you have to build that career security for yourself, and you have to build your own brand. And your brand is not your title. Your
Right.
brand is not your company that you work for. Your brand is what you innately are good at, what you're known for, what people say about you when you're not in the room. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people in corporate really don't understand. And the best tool for that is LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So, everybody needs to be thinking about, what is it? What are my unique gifts? What's my unique value prop that I deliver to the world outside of this role? You could have done the most amazing things. But newsflash, guys, if someone comes in with a different idea of how the company should go, your role could be eliminated tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So have that ready to rock, and then you're going to be in a much better position should you find yourself flat footed.
I can totally relate to that. I feel like you're talking to me. you know, Going from a CEO, I had a lot of notoriety being a woman CEO in a very
Yeah,
male dominated field. And so when that changed in January, I was like, oh shit, like no one's going to care about me. I'm not going to have that
that's right.
presence. And I did. I had to sort of pivot
Yeah,
and I take a more active role in LinkedIn and start doing things that got me out there. And I did realize it was actually about me. Like
yeah,
people do care about me professionally, personally, whatever you
yeah.
want to call it. The company almost gets you there, right? That got me the exposure. I wouldn't have taken that role. I wouldn't have had the exposure that I did,
That's right.
but I'm still here, right? So
Well, and I think it's really easy for people to minimize their success. I was just working with a client yesterday on a LinkedIn workshop, and she's really uncomfortable talking about the stuff that she's done that she's been recognized for. And I said, I'm going to stop you right there, Olivia. The thing you need to remember is you getting recognition, whether it's our 100% club or President's Club or, some award, that's a fact.
right,
It's not a feeling. And you can talk about facts. And if I say I'm a two-time author and a podcast host, I'm not bragging. Those are
right.
facts.
It's true.
So everyone needs to get a little more comfortable with saying, no, I did this. It's mine.
Yep.
And nothing that happens to me will ever take that away.
Oh, I love that. And it goes back to one of my favorite topics is pie and
Yeah.
how your performance matters, right? But then
Yeah.
there's also the image and the exposure. And that just reinforces that
Yeah.
your image is your brand
It
and you have
is.
to be out there promoting yourself, whether
Well,
it's
and
just
what are
because
you
you want a
known
job.
for, right?
Right.
Like if you're gonna sit and lurk on LinkedIn, and we know there's a lot of lurkers. We love our lurkers, but if you're gonna lurk and if you're gonna, be inspired by stuff but never say anything, the way you grow on that platform is not with creating content. It's showing up in the comments. And if something interests you, say something.
Right.
First of all, the person who created it is going to appreciate the heck out of it,
Yep.
but it's also all their network is going to see what you have to say. And if you say something real smart, and if you're listening to this show, you're never going to say great post because that sucks. You're going to say something intelligent that reflects well on you. And that is how you grow. That is how you start your brand. It's also how you hone what you're really interested in.
I love that. That's so true.
Yeah.
What are some of those other truths? That's a great one. That's a huge one that we could
Mm.
talk about for the entire episode, but I know you have other ones.
Yeah, the other one that I love this, and we did this a lot at IBM, but if you're working for a company, ask to have informational interviews outside of your reporting chain.
Mm,
And the reason you do this is because you're getting exposure to other parts of the business, but they're also getting exposure to you. And when they have an open role, perhaps your name rises to the top of that list. I got 5 different first of a kind roles at IBM from just that. And people would make an intro and they'd be like, "Hey, Lindsay, you need to go and talk to this executive over there. She, I think, would really like you. And, you two need to know each other." Sure, cool, let's go. So I go, I get to peacock, I get to say, "I've done these things, I've done all this good stuff." And they go, "No way, that's amazing. Actually, I'm hiring and I want you for this role. And if the timing is right and the stars align, off you go." So it's a great way of keeping your talent in house.
Yep.
You have to have secure leaders at the top that are not threatened by this. And anyone that's threatened by this, I'm going to tell you, you need to stop and re-examine what you're doing in leadership, because I came from the philosophy of I only wanted people on my team who wanted to be there.
Mm.
And if someone said, "Hey, Linz, I want to go and interview for this job," even if I didn't think they were ready, I supported them because I only wanted the people that really wanted to be there and ready, wanted to rock with me on my team. So stop that whole, like, if I lose her, my team's not going to perform. You have to say, "No, I support you." They will remember that loyalty, but think about it. If you begrudge her that opportunity, what kind of performance is she going to have sticking around on your team?
So true.
Not good.
No.
So think about those informational interviews. Those are huge. And it's just such a great way to broaden your experience. And my career path was anything but straight. I zigged, I zagged, I went all over the place, and I did really weird, unexpected things, but I loved it and I learned so much. That's a really great way to do it. And I'll tell you, I have a friend, Mark Peters. He's the CEO of Butterball. He actually built, this is so cool. He built this consortium in Michigan of companies. They're medium to small companies, and they don't have a big enough company to do what I'm describing. So they created a consortium of companies to allow that to happen across all of the 5
Oh,
companies.
wow.
So imagine, "Hey guys, I'm hiring for a social media marketer. Does anybody have anyone ready to make a move at their company?" "Yeah, I do. Let me make an intro." So it's fostering this really healthy culture
Yep.
across a bunch of different companies. And I think that's so smart.
That's very smart.
Yeah.
And to your point, it keeps people there. What do you suggest for somebody if they're at a company that they don't have those opportunities or avenues? Like, do you go outside the company? Like, how do you handle that if you don't have that internally?
I think it's really healthy to surround yourself with people who are doing the things you want to do. And, whether that's getting in community, like you and I have talked about, being a member of the Outlier Project, or being on LinkedIn and seeing, somebody makes a post that inspires you in some way, reaching out to them and saying, I really admired that post. It really spoke to me. Could you ever spare 15 minutes for a coffee chat? When you talk to these people who are doing the things that you want to do, it makes you better. It helps you avoid some of the mistakes and the pitfalls, which invariably we all make,
Sure.
but you're cultivating a network. And I made a really huge mistake at IBM. I thought that was my network. I
Mm.
thought my business partners, my clients, and the people that I worked with was my network. And it wasn't until I left that I went, "Oh crap, now what?"
Right.
and and all those people that were reaching out to me over the years, I was like, "I don't know you. Nope, nope." And it was so dumb. My network would be so much bigger if I didn't do that. But this is a really warm place to be connected to people who are doing incredible things. And you would be surprised how many people would be open to doing a coffee chat and just getting to know you.
Absolutely. I have
And
experienced that in my career, just reaching out to people I didn't know. Actually, that's how we met.
yes,
Was on LinkedIn. But,
exactly.
even I've said before, when I took my role as CEO, I started reaching out to other CEOs in the industry and just trying, and people are willing to share.
Yeah,
And hey, 10, 15 minutes, and I make sure I return the favor. I
of
talked with
course.
somebody the other week who never met. He reached out to me. He was like, "Hey, I've been following your content forever. I'm also working for a founder. I would love your advice." I'm like,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
Well,
I mean, it's just that give and take relationship.
and look, you built this beautiful show to support other women, and women in our age and experience. It is our responsibility to pay it forward.
Yes,
And I mentor a lot of women, and I'm very happy to do it. And I'm helping to build the next generation of leaders. It's really, really important to me. But sometimes they just want to check themselves. Sometimes, you just, "Linz, I'm interviewing for this and I have some red flags. Can you just listen to this and tell me, if I should be concerned?" that perspective is gold.
Absolutely.
And especially if it's from someone you really look up to.
No, that's so
So,
true. That's been huge in my career, and I will always do that. And it's funny because sometimes when you hear some of that negativity, it comes from older women, much older than us, who aren't always supportive, and you
yeah,
hear it's because they didn't get the support. So instead of being
right.
positive and flippant and be like, "I need to be supportive," they
Yeah.
take that as like, "Well, no one helped me." So it's just flipping that with, as we move forward, that
Well,
we're doing
and
that for the next generation.
love that you said that, Betsy. I think one of the things that I always say, if you're in a funk, if you are feeling really down and a little lost, the first and best thing you could do is do something for someone else.
Mm,
And the second you do that, it takes you out of your own head and you are enjoying the reaction to whatever it is you're doing, but it makes you feel really good.
that's true.
So,
And I like to
with
think about the whole what comes around goes around positively and negatively, right? We'll call it
absolutely
karma, but if you're doing those things, it's just putting out that good energy, that good vibe, it's gonna come back to you. So
100%.
I think that's really important.
I love that.
Nice. So let's talk about your book, Top Down Culture. So you actually, speaking of LinkedIn, had oh, there we go. Beautiful. We'll link that on our website. You had a LinkedIn post, speaking of LinkedIn, the other day that I loved because I have not read your book yet. It's on my
Mhm.
list. And you wrote, when people feel unseen, unsafe, or undervalued, they don't just disengage, they disappear,
Yeah.
sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally. Either way, the leader's legacy is the vacancy they leave behind. If you're a leader, you don't have the luxury of just doing your job. Your job is to inspire, your job is to protect, your job is to see people, really see them, and make sure they know they matter. I love that.
I have goosebumps. Who wrote that?
I know. I should have told you to read it, but I
Well,
like just copy
I'm
and
glad
pasted
you
it.
did.
But
It's so true, and I will tell you, I have watched leaders do horrendous things, and I've watched people shrink into the background, become a fraction of who they were, and lose all confidence and all the wind in their sails. I have watched leaders literally jump on tables and curse and scream at people. I've watched leaders throw things. And then I've also watched leaders, I've had a number of them who saw me, understood I had major chops and great things to bring to the table. And they gave me incredible autonomy and said things like, "How do you want to run the business?" What? You want to know? Holy crap,
you're
that's
asking my
amazing.
opinion.
Yeah, let's go. But when you give someone the space to do the job they're hired for, and you trust them to do that job. Hey, guys, if people interviewed for a job and they got the job, let them do it. Stop micromanaging them. Stop, overseeing everything they're doing because all you're doing is telling them you don't trust them. And trust is your currency. So when you build trust, that is when all of the magic happens. And one of the tips that I love to give leaders when you're starting out with a new team is to say, and this is a humbling question, you are admitting you don't know everything, but you say, "How can I be the best leader for you?
Hmm,
Because I don't know. I don't know what you need."
right. And
And
everyone's different.
everyone's gonna give you a different answer based on age, based on tenure, based on experience, based on goals. And so the cool part about that is you get to meet people where they are. They're gonna tell you, "You know what? I know I'm on this marketing team, but I really like analytics. If you have an analytics opportunity, I'd love to jump in." Or, "I don't know what the heck I'm doing in this job. I was moved over from an acquisition and I would love a mentor. I'd love someone on the team who's doing really well to just show me the ropes." If you don't ask,
Mm,
you don't know.
yep.
And it's akin to parenting, right? If you have children, you cannot parent them all the same. You can have the same house rules,
Yep.
but your kids need different things, and so does everybody else. So figuring out what makes people tick, what makes them shine, how they like to be recognized, that's an easy
Mm,
question. Do you like your name in lights or do you like to fly quiet under the radar? Do you want to just be in an email or do you want to be on stage? Because I've seen people recognize terrible introverts. They're not terrible, but they're terribly introverted.
sure.
And to put them on stage, they would rather die.
Right.
Like that is not fun for them. So just asking those questions makes you a better leader. It makes you way more in tune with your people. And when you start at the top with this kind of philosophy, If you are a CEO, you can call on any leader across the org and say, what's going on with your team? Tell me who's struggling. Tell me what they need. What are they asking for? I'll tell you a cool
I
story.
love that.
A friend of mine worked at Salesforce, and he was a good sales rep. He was doing a good job, and he just wasn't fulfilled. And his boss was like, what's going on? And he's like, I have this idea for a job. And I really would like to work with all of the executives across Salesforce. I would like to coach them on, being the best leaders they can, understanding the culture, and being that kind of go between to really watch talent across the organization. He's like, well, that job doesn't exist. Well, it just so happened the next day, that manager was with the CEO. And he's like, so what's going on your team? And he said, well, I have this one rep and he's good, but he had this idea to do this job. The CEO loved it. He said, make it happen.
Oh my gosh.
And he got the job. And he did this for years. And he built this entire framework for all the sales leaders across Salesforce. It was a phenomenally cool job. So fulfilled. He knew every executive, knew everything about their teams and what they needed. But if you don't ask, you don't know.
That is so huge and so important because you think about how that manager leader relationship works with their team. It's always to-do lists, right?
Yeah.
It's what are you doing? What do you need help with? Like, and it
Mhm.
just gets very tactical. And of
Yep.
course that has to happen, but there's that piece of, and there's performance reviews, which that's
Of
can be a
course.
whole other
Oh,
conversation.
oh my God.
But
How much
how
time do we have?
often do leaders ask for feedback? Like, how
Yeah.
can I help you? What are you doing? What do you need? And
Right.
I don't think that happens. And I
No.
think back to like relationships and conversations I've had, but it's like asking how you can help support them.
Yeah. Well, and that whole idea of I don't have time to meet with my people, get out of the damn job.
Mm,
You are in the wrong job.
yep,
You are responsible to your people. And if your calendar is so overloaded with meetings, which are likely a lot of management mumbo jumbo that probably could have been an email, let's be honest,
yep,
eh, you're doing it wrong.
yep.
And you either have to push back or make time on your calendar to meet with your people regularly.
And to help support them, right? Not
Yeah.
to try to do their job, do the
No,
micromanaging,
no.
get into the weeds, like, it's to help support them to do
Right.
their job,
Right.
and I think that's where people miss the whole concept of leadership or
Yeah.
management. They think, "Oh, it's higher title, higher pay,
Power.
power." Yep,
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
they miss the whole point of what
Mhm.
it actually entails and what their day should look like, and you're right, it's not a to-do list and 100 meetings, it's
No.
supporting your team.
I think so many people mistake getting into leadership with a ladder they need to climb,
Mm,
and they're not really considering the fact that they are responsible to people. And I know, I mean, we've all seen it where the top performer gets promoted
yep,
and that person doesn't give a rat's ass about anybody and they're so frustrated that their team isn't doing exactly what they did. And so everyone's disenfranchised with each other. It's likely a toxic situation. That person probably manages up very well, and you've just decimated your culture.
yep.
So stop doing that, please.
Yes, I I have seen that more than, well, 5 or 100 times, but
Yeah.
so if you're the employee team member listening to this and you have the boss who's not doing that, how do you deal with that, right? Like, how
Yeah.
because 'cause you're miserable, you're feeling micromanaged, you're probably not
Yeah.
producing the way that you should, like, how do you handle that?
I just talked to a client yesterday about this, and she has a new manager who is kind of doing the whole there's a new sheriff in town, and he has his own ideas about how things should go, and he is not taking the time to understand her, to get to know her, to see all the depth and breadth of relationships that she's built. And he has his, I mean, unfortunately, she saw that he scheduled a meeting with HR, which I think it likely means he's trying to move her out
Oh,
of business.
yeah,
And so she's devastated and she's going, what do I do? And the first thing I said, if you like the company that you're at, now's the time to go do those informational interviews. Now's the time to find those leaders in the other parts of the business. Maybe you've worked with them before. Maybe you know who they are. Maybe they know who you are. Reach out and start saying, hey, I'm popping my head up. I'm looking for something new. Are you hiring or do you know anybody who is within the company? I don't want to leave. And if you've built a good reputation for yourself, most people are going to be pretty happy about those calls.
sure,
There's always the whole like, ooh, does so and so know? And yes, you're going to have those
right.
political things, but you also have to protect yourself. And staying under a leader like the one who fired me is not only bad for you emotionally, it's really bad for you psychologically. And nobody should stay in that type of climate. I'm not saying get out of corporate and go be an entrepreneur. I'm saying, look around, see who's hiring. If there's a place that you can land in your company that's an easier move than starting from scratch at another company. It's not to say you wouldn't get more money. You very well could.
Sure.
But this is a really volatile time. And it's real hard to land jobs right now. The market is full of job seekers, and you need to set yourself up for success. And so, greasing the skids and reaching out to people outside of your reporting chain is really important.
That's very good advice. So do you think we'll call them bad leaders? Do you think
Mhm.
most of them know they're bad, and do you think they can ever change?
I think we got two problems. I think one, they don't know that they're bad, and two, they don't care.
Oh,
So, when I look back at some of the worst leaders I had, there was a lot of them. It was a total power play for them.
yeah.
I actually listen to this. I had this story. This is terrible. I had this leader. We were in, it was like a happy hour. We had our business partners there. I don't remember what the event was. And I said, oh, I want to introduce you to one of my business partners. And so I brought them over and I said, oh, this is my boss, so and so. Oh, nice to meet you. Niceties exchanged. Fine. The business partners leave the room and then he's addressing the rest of us. So there's over 100 people in the room. And he said, hey, everyone, I just want you to understand something. Never introduce me as your boss. I am your manager. And I was like, is this really happening? So what he did was assert his power, but he fractured, let's say shattered my trust of him. And I never wanted another thing to do with that
Oh my
man
gosh.
again. So I would do anything but work for him.
Right.
And if it was like I raised my hand all the time to do weird stuff, I was happy to do that. If his name was on it, I'm like, oh, you're on your own. I'll be over here. But that is a real nonsense way to lead, and that doesn't instill trust. It doesn't instill any kind of wisdom,
Right.
or that is a stupid semantics, who cares
Right.
kind of thing. And he had so many choices with the way he could have handled that. He could have pulled me aside afterwards and say, hey, listen, I prefer that if you introduce me as your manager. I would have been like, oh god, I'm sorry, I
Right.
didn't realize that was wrong. I don't think it's wrong either, but in his case, he was just asserting power. So don't be that guy. That's
Oh my
lousy.
gosh.
So you have these people that are in it for the wrong reasons. There's a lot of boys club stuff that still happens today. People promote who they know
Yep.
and who they feel safe with and who they can be exclusive with. I hated that exclusive style of management. I did never inspired me, and I always ran the other way. And I never performed when I was in that
Sure.
circumstance. Whenever I had somebody who gave me autonomy and said, how else could we do this? What's a different way to approach this? I rose to the top every
Right.
single time. So you really have to understand that those choices will have a direct impact on your results.
And on your sanity.
Hell yeah.
There's nothing worse than
Yeah.
being in a situation like that because it's not going to change,
Yeah.
and the person could go for coaching, get a 360, whatever it is, but they're in the wrong position, which
Yeah.
then has that trickle down,
And he
top down
continued to get
effect.
promoted over and over and over again.
Ugh,
Mhm.
crazy.
Gross.
So what are your other big, like, takeaways from, your heart-centered leadership or from
Yeah.
top-down culture that just, if you can instill in the world, we'd be all in a better place?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite things that I love to talk about is I don't call them soft skills, I call them power skills.
Mm,
And they are far too important to be called anything soft. So, some of these are one of my favorite ones is delegation. And delegation, everyone's like, oh, I'm going to get stuff off my plate. Yes, that's true. But if you've been asking the question of how can I be the best leader for you, then you know what people are interested in. So, if you have a project that you can delegate or you can let someone run point on, you do it. But you are responsible for that project.
mm,
And if they fall down on their face, that's on you. They don't take that blame. I have been thrown under the bus before by people that delegated, and it is absolutely damaging. It's you shatter all trust, and you won't ever do anything for them again. You won't stick your neck out for them anymore. So when you give them that opportunity, you have to say, I know you love analytics. I've got this analytics project. I would love you to run point on it. I'd love you to lead it. Are you comfortable with that? And if anything goes south, it's on me. You got that? Oh my God. Yeah. Thanks for the
Wow.
opportunity, boss. This is great. I'm excited. Let's go. You're giving them an opportunity to shine. And guys, oh my God, I can't say this enough. When you celebrate the people on your team and you give them credit for the things that they are doing, that looks good on you.
Yes.
This
Oh,
leadership concept
yeah.
of, oh, if I give so and so credit, no one's going to think I'm a good leader. No, dummy. They work for you. This is great. You want your people to shine and you want them to talk about you. So, when you delegate, when you celebrating people, everyone can do this. You do not need to be an HR leader to do this. Anybody, you can do it on LinkedIn. You can do it every day. I try and do it every day. When someone does even something this big that is so cool, you shout them out. You send them the text. You celebrate them publicly, whatever. And that always looks good on you.
Oh my gosh, I can't like that comment enough, and I have always been a big advocate of that with my teams, and I've had people on my team who can't get that, and that's hard, like, this
Yeah.
makes you look better.
Yeah.
This isn't a competition, they support you, they're supposed to be lifting you up too, so
Oh, I have a little story. Can I tell you a
yeah,
little
of
story
course.
that goes with that? So, I had a client and she was a VP and she had kind of a call center kind of setup. And so think of cubicles and prairie dogging and that
Mm,
whole thing. And she started to implement this little system she made up and she started putting sticky notes on people's desks whenever she heard that they did a great call or they had, a really great review or whatever. And she'd just walk by and she'd put the sticky note on the desk. And you'd see the sticky note and it would say like, Betsy, phenomenal job with that last call. It sounded great. And you're like, wow, she
aw,
noticed and she's a VP. That's pretty cool.
yeah.
And so, they'd see her walking around and they'd be like, oh, maybe she's coming to me. Maybe she's coming. And so it raised the bar. Everybody started doing a little bit better. But the coolest thing that happened is everyone started doing it for each other.
Mm,
And so they'd be like, hey, Fred, nice job on that. And so it creates this infectious celebratory environment
love that.
where people are excited to show up for each other. They're excited to help. They're excited to be connected. And she set that tone. And that's just from celebrating people. So imagine what that can do to your results when everybody is looking out for each other and saying, nice job. Like, that's not a threat to me when I say, you did that really well.
And imagine the difference in the environment, right? Like, the energy, the support, the excitement, that just changes everything for everybody. So when you go to work, you're probably going in with a better attitude because you're
100%,
just
and you're
doing it
happy
for
to
a
see
positive.
people.
Right.
And, when Fred gave you the sticky note that you didn't expect, you're like, "What's up, Fred?"
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, you've got a new friend. You've got
Oh,
someone you're a little more interested in, a little more connected to, and think where that can go.
and it's a little Post-it note. I mean, it's so simple, and
So
I love
simple.
the point that, sure, a lot of times it starts with the leader, but other people gotta get involved and get engaged and help
Yeah,
support your team. That's
yeah,
that's huge. Oh,
yeah,
I love
it's
that.
cool.
Lindsay, this was amazing. I appreciate this, conversation so much. So if people wanna connect with you, find out more, where can they find you?
So my website is heartbeatforhire.com. All of my socials are connected there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. Say you heard it here on Loud and Lifted. And yeah, I'm always happy to connect with other women and other people and other leaders. My whole mission in life is to change leadership as we know it and make it way more heart-centered. So thank you for the opportunity to
Oh my
share.
gosh, I love it. Thank you, and I'm totally support your approach for sure.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
friend.
Lindsay.
Pleasure.
What I love about Lindsay is that she makes leadership feel both human and actionable. From power skills to the simple question, how can I be the best leader for you? She challenges us to step outside of our outdated, exclusive management styles and into creating cultures where people thrive. Her message pairs beautifully with what we learned from Linda Strange about the PI framework: performance, image, and exposure. Lindsay reminds us that exposure is a necessity and leaders have to get it right when supporting their teams. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend or coworker who needs a reminder of what great leadership looks like. And don't forget to follow Loud and Lifted on Instagram for more real, practical advice to help you lead louder. Until next time, stay loud and stay lifted.